Hey, what up guys? It's Ron here. We got Bruno, lovely Bruno, recording this awesome video out in Deer Island, Boston. And this is going to be one of my most important videos because like love is the most biggest thing and friendships are the most biggest things you could ever have in your life. So it's going to be kind of long, so just giving a little heads up about that. But this is inspired just from reading a ton of books on relationships, evolutionary psychology, had a ton of friends, cut off a ton of friends, and I'm just going to quickly talk about two things. One of them is how to know whether a person's right for you in terms of a relationship, and the second thing is going to be how to know if you need to cut someone off, because unfortunately there have been people in my life that I've cut off in terms of us being friends just don't work together. And you know, it's the same thing with relationships, choosing the right person for you and how to know if that person should be with you or not. And the first part, the relationship video section, it was inspired from like a little bit of a Facebook feud between me and someone else. Someone said if I'm awake or not, or like if I'm successful, like let's say you're a successful guy, should I be with someone else who's successful just like they are? You know, should I be with someone who's understands the world the way I do? And honestly, I don't believe that's necessarily true, only because success is different to each person. Just because you're successful, let's say you're making $1 million a year and like you're giving to charity and changing the world, that's your version of success. Another person's version of success is just putting food on the table for someone else. So taking that frame of I'm successful and I can only be with other people who are successful is kind of not ignorant, but it's a little bit of a judgmental vibe that you don't really want to give out, because you're making it seem like you're better than other people. And just because you are aware of what's going on in the world, or you're aware of other people and just what's going on in terms of success, like economics, anything, that doesn't mean you're better than someone who doesn't understand that. And it's true, it's just like you don't want to be with somebody who has all these things that you do. It doesn't work that way. Like Warren Buffett says, he says that you should be with somebody who has low expectations of you. It's not about being on the same path. If you're a vegan, okay, be with someone who understands veganism and obviously doesn't want to, you know, eat the same foods together. But she doesn't have to be a vegan, eat 5 books. She doesn't have to be a vegan, read 5 books, hit the gym, do all this shit, do all that, make $1 million, because you're trying to find perfectionism, and that's never going to happen. Because I'm sure you yourself aren't perfect. You're never going to find someone who's doing everything that you're doing in the same way that you're doing it, and blah, 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 blah. It's just too much high expectations. It's just honestly not realistic. It's just too unrealistic. You want to be with somebody who supports your vision, who understands your dream and doesn't hold you back, and at the end of the day you feel comfortable with just hanging out with them, just being with them. You want to love that person or be with that person for them, not because they're successful, work out, blah 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 blah. I know you want to push each other, yes, encourage each other, push each other, but don't look for somebody who's doing everything that you're doing, because honestly it's just hard to find, and it's unrealistic, and it's a little bit judgmental, because that means you're putting yourself on a higher pedestal than the other person, and it's just not really ideal. You're not going to find someone, especially if you're a high-driven, ambitious guy, finding someone who's high ambitious just like you is just like opposites. It just doesn't work that way. It doesn't make sense. It's like childhood friends. A lot of good relationships, especially back in the day, came from childhood friends. And we live in a generation now where we have a lot more decisions, all right? We can decide on Tinder. We meet thousands of people through Tinder. Cities, 100 years ago, we were all in farms. So now we're in cities now, which means there's more bars, which means there's more clubs, which means there's more work, there's more industry, and there's just more people. So it's easier to meet a ton of girls or a ton of guys. We have too much options. And with those options, become picky. This girl, you know, she's blonde, she's an 8 in body, she has a degree in college and she makes $60,000 a year, but she's not as successful as me, so I'm not going to be with her. That's bullshit. Or you want a guy who's this tall, this, that, and then you're like, oh, I don't want, you know, he doesn't fit up to my what I want to be. Then you keep switching people, and then that person finds someone else and they're happy, and you're like, oh, I wish I stayed with that person, but you thought too much about it and you had too much high standards that just weren't realistic. It's tough to just find someone who's just perfect in that way, shape, or form, and you're trying to make somebody become someone who it's just unrealistic. It's just not really realistic. So I don't truly believe that you should be have that much high expectations for a partner. It shouldn't be about they have to be this, they have to be that, they have to understand success in the way that I do it, they have to read all these books, and they have to just look at the world. It's just like, it's too much. Don't look for somebody who's just all about that. That shouldn't be your criteria, because we're all human, and even though you know about success and you know that there's like people dying in other parts of the world every day starving, that doesn't mean that you're more better than the other person or more awake than them. Don't look for that as a criteria for being in a relationship. It's just unrealistic. Your whole life, even if you're a successful guy, most people aren't successful. You're a leader of men, or you're a woman who's just, you have to understand that most people, you're going to run into people who just are not about that. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with not trying to be successful. There's nothing wrong with not knowing certain things. As long as you're doing your best, you are a human, you're doing your best that you can, that's fine. Stop putting high, strict standards on people. That's just unrealistic. It's okay to not be successful for some people. It's all right. You know, don't judge people by that. Instead, be with somebody who doesn't hold you back. Be with someone who supports you. Be with someone who, at the end of the day, you can trust and go back to and just like feel yourself. That's really all you need. You don't need someone who's more awake than you. I don't need somebody who's, you know, trying to like eradicate malaria. I mean, it's nice, but like, that's not what I'm looking for. I'm not trying to like pressure people to be someone they're not. I want to be relaxed, and I want to be with someone I can be relaxed with. You know, that's what you want your expectations to be. And it's tough because now, in the modern age, it's just, you know, divorce rate's high, so no one knows what they're doing with dating, and they're afraid to admit it, and they're getting advice from people who fucking get 4 marriages and they're divorced like crazy. Like, we're all spreading wrong ideas. So it's important. Love's important. I mean, half the songs on the radio are about love, right? So it's just, love is a big thing, and a lot of people are just screwing this up. I want someone who's this, I want someone who's that, blah, blah, blah. If they don't share the blah, 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 that's not, shut up, stop. Be with somebody who you trust, somebody who doesn't hold you back, doesn't force you to do wrong things, and at the end of the day, you're comfortable with. That's it. You know, you like them for who they are, not for fucking them getting rid of mosquitoes and solving the new DNA. Like, you don't, that's just too much, okay? That's number one, the relationship thing. Number two is how to cut people off. And cutting people off is a tricky subject, because not everyone's going to be on your same path. Not everyone's going to be on your same journey. So it's hard to determine whether or not you can keep people around or not. And as a guy or a girl, you know, when you grow up, when you go to high school, you're stuck with the same people. You're grouped in the same homeroom. You know, you spend time with these people for 20 years, 30, I mean, not 20 years, but 18 years, you're with the same people in your hometown. And then most likely, if you're I'm an American, if you're an average American kid, you go to college and you meet new people that way, and you just branch out and you probably move, right? So your first 18 years, most likely you're gonna be friends with people that you're not gonna be friends with anymore, just due to you branching out and becoming your own person. So, and that comes bad things and good things. So if you're a person and you wanna change yourself, you wanna grow, most likely you're gonna have to do some cutting off. You're gonna have to cut some people off that you don't want to. And the litmus test for that is a couple of things. One of those things is, do these people hold you back, okay? I don't think you should cut people off if they're not trying to be as successful as you, or they're not trying to be as in shape as you. That shouldn't be your criteria for having friends. Have friends for liking them for who they are. That's what I think your criteria should be. It should be just about having a good time, laughing. Do these people genuinely like love you? You know, do you love them back? That should be your criteria for having good friends. Like me, I read 5 books a fucking week. I'm a freak, okay? And you know, a lot of my friends do read, but some of them don't, and that's okay. I don't want everyone to read. Sometimes reading is not for you. It's just my thing, okay? Like, that's just, I got friends who are into, I'm into meditation. I got friends who aren't into meditation. That's fine. It's not really about that. So I don't cut them off just because they're not into what I'm into. I cut people off who are negative and try to hold me back. That's really what should be the litmus test. If you're with somebody, if you got a friend and you're trying to, a good example is losing weight. I love using the gym because I love the gym. It's just a big passion of mine. I'm always in the gym. If you're trying to lose weight and your friend keeps making fun of you for losing weight and tries to pull you away from the gym, like if I'm like, hey, I'm going to the gym, and he's like, oh, you going to the gym again? Like, yo, you need to chill out with that shit. You go to the gym too much. If he's saying some stuff like that, you got to spend some time away from that person, number one. Try to spend some time away from that person and see how much better your life is. If your life is better and then you go back to that person and they keep trying to bring you down again, you need to cut that person off. You know, I got friends who smoke weed all day and we can just hang out and talk and chill. But when I tell them, look, I got to go read, I got to go to a meeting, I got to go like do something, they're like, okay, dude, go do your thing. I don't care. That's a good friend. If he's like, hey, stop doing that shit, stop reading, like come smoke weed with me and fucking let's do that, I'm gonna cut that person off because that person's holding me back from what I wanna be, okay? So you need to pick friends based off like if they're holding you back or not, because like I said, you're gonna meet people who just aren't on the same path as you, and that's fine. We're humans. Like at the end of the day, we're all gonna, I don't wanna say we're all gonna die, but Father Time is undefeated. He always wins. So successful or not successful, pothead or philanthropist, we're all going in that little box, you know, that little 6 feet ditch. So that's why it's like you don't really need to judge people. Have friends based off like how you guys vibe, if they love you. There's a theory called tit for tat theory if you read a book called Evolutionary Psychology by Dr. David Buss. You should base friends based off welfare trade-off ratios, okay? Tit for tat. I give you something, you give me something. I hang out with my friend, he hangs out with me. I take the check, he takes the next check. I drive into the town one day to pimp, he drives in the next day. Or same thing with a girl, like they do something for me, I do something for you. You know, that's how the friendship should be on, based off trust in that. It shouldn't be based off of like anything else, really. And if they're holding you back, if they're saying some negative stuff like, hey, you know, don't do this, don't read, if you're trying to better yourself, if they're trying to just hold you back, cut them out of your life. It's just a new, I'm going to tell you a good story about this. This is a great story. When I first started reading, the first book I ever read was Awaken the Giant Within. And I was about 19 years old. And what happened was, it's a little cold, but what happened was I was 19 and I was just failing out of school, man. I was doing really bad. I went to school for biotechnology, and I was paying rent at the time, and I was working a really low-end job, like Banana Republic or FYE, something like that, something $8 an hour or something. And I was just so fucking depressed. Every day I was depressed, and it was a downward spiral. And I knew if I didn't make a change, I would be heading for disaster, and I didn't like that. So at the time, I just moved from college to college. So at the time, I still had friends from back home. Like I said, you grow up with kids, doesn't matter, you're just grouped in that same room, so they're just your friends. I grew up with these kids. We didn't know how, you don't know how bad things are until you leave, so I didn't know that. And what happened was I read a book called Awaken the Giant Within, and it changed my whole fucking everything. It changed everything for me. I realized that emotions are something that are like action signals. You can change your emotions if you want. Like you can actually have a positive life, and you can actually change things and actually become someone who can read and become someone who can grow and actually like do something about your fucking life. And I'm like, wow, I like this book. I want to change my life. I started implementing the book because there's action steps in the book. And I started just growing, boom, I started seeing results, started seeing results. And at that time, I felt like I had a new direction in my life, and it was awesome. But I was still in contact with these friends, these old friends, right? And whenever I would bring the book around me like the Book of Eli too. I would walk around just bringing the book on me like I was the Book of Eli everywhere I went. I had the book on me because I just loved it and wanted to finish it. It was a 500-page book, so it took me like a month or two to finish my first book. And what happened was they would tell me, why are you reading a book by another man? This book is obviously a scam. Like, no book can give you, like, only God can give you some type of direction. Like, a book really can't help you. No other man can tell you about your own life. Like, that book is, reading is for stupid people. Like, you shouldn't be doing that. And they would say things like this constantly. And I told myself, how in the world could this book not help me? Because I already used some of this book and it fucking changed my whole life. How in the heck can this book be fake? It's not a scam. I've done it. I'm doing it right now. I'm in the process of doing it. And the book talked about this too. Like, you got to cut off negative people. So I realized that these people are literally holding me back. This kid is literally telling me that this book is a waste of time, but I've been using the book and my life has been changing. You need to cut that friend out. So what I did was I cut that friend off, and that friend just started spiraling down. I love that friend. Like, it was a really good friend of mine, so it wasn't easy to do, but I had to do it. And since then, like, my life has been going I started meeting newer friends who motivate me. They're like, hey, like, Ron, like, I love what you're doing. I'm not really into it, but I love it. Like, keep doing what you're doing. Like, friends like that. That's what friends you want to keep around. If you're in the gym, friends who are like, I fucking love that you're in the gym, keep crushing it. You know, I want to get in the gym just like you maybe one day. I'm not in it right now, but I love that you're doing that. Like, you want to have friends who are pushing you up, not friends who are holding you back. So my advice with the friend thing is don't be quick to cut people off. Don't be like, hey, I'm gonna just cut you off because you're not on my path, because that's obviously unrealistic. And as a leader of men, leader of women, you're just gonna run into people who are just a little bit not trying to do that, and that's fine. You shouldn't judge people just by that. You could still keep them around, but like, maybe you can limit your time with them. But don't just be quick to cut them off. Instead, just like give a little space. Like, if they're not really what you're into, just give a little space, see them a little bit once in a while. As long as they don't hold you back, you guys still hang out, cool, whatever. But if they're literally negative and trying to hold you back, whether it's your friends, it can either be a family member or a partner, you need to cut that person off entirely out of your life. If they're saying negative things, like if they're just like holding you back, like you want to go to the gym and they're like, let's do this, come on, let's do that. It's not aligned with your path. You're trying to just like read a book, and they're like, books are like for pussies, or like only, there's a lot of things in like the streets. Like, I grew up in a little rough neighborhood. They say like gangsters shoot, and like books are for like nerds, like little cowards. Obviously fucking stupid as hell, because if you read Malcolm X and all these people who stood up for, like, you know, lower income areas, they preach the opposite. A man who doesn't read is an idiot, pretty much. If you're not learning every day, you're a fool, right? So it's the inverse of that. Like, you're not really, that doesn't mean anything. It's just empty bullshit if you buy into that. I'm sorry. If you have friends like that, people who are just cutting you off, like, don't do this, don't do that, you need to do this, come out with me, come, like, let's drink, like, fuck these girls, and like all this stuff, pulling you away from your path, and like you're just fucking, like, you need to cut those people out, because the last thing you want to do is be on the wrong path because of friends' social influences. So just be more aware of that. That's just it. Relationships, please do not judge based off if they want to be successful or not, because it's just not a reality. Like, you're gonna like them for who they are. Like, actually look at them and like them for who they are, and if they match with you, is in terms of just like, you just vibe with them, you trust them, and you have low expectations. And for the friend thing, just don't be quick to cut them off. Be cool with them, like they're your friends, but if they try to bring you back, then you might have to let them go. Okay, so it's Ron. We're gonna have a course coming out on all this cool stuff. We're gonna talk about it more in a couple of videos later. It's a little cold out here, but definitely subscribe and leave your comments on what you think about this, because it's just a big thing, especially between kids my age. I'm 23, so just definitely leave some thoughts on the comments here, and I will see you in the next video.